Welcome, graduates. Welcome, alumni, faculty, friends and family, and distinguished guests. My name is Toby Cortelyou. I am the Director of Enrollment Management for the MSC program and a proud alumni of the class of 2012. And it's my honor to welcome you to the Northwestern University Master of Science in Communication Convocation ceremony for the class of 2021. My role here today is to welcome you, to introduce you to a bit of the MSc program, and to introduce our first guest. I'd like to begin by reading for you the MSc mission statement. It reads as follows. As one of the oldest and most prestigious professional communication programs in the world, we create a diverse and dynamic learning environment by exploring timeless theoretical concepts and innovative practical applications. Through integrative and authentic experiences, we cultivate learners' abilities to lead and affect change in their organizations, their communities, and themselves. Collaborative leadership, elegant communication, managing complexity, these are the learning themes of the MSc program. Our graduates have studied team dynamics, leadership, network science, communication ethics, all in a time when these skills could not be more important. The fact that they've studied and committed and gone through the rigor of this program during this time in history is truly inspirational. And with that, it's my honor to introduce you to our first speaker. Professor Randall Iden is the faculty director of the MSc program and has been teaching here for many years. He earned his JD from the University of Pennsylvania and his MSc and PhD here in the School of Communication at Northwestern University. As faculty director, Randy oversees the entire operations of the program from top to bottom. And while he's been my professional supervisor for the last 3 years, it's an honor to call him a friend. And with that, please join me in welcoming Professor Randy Iden.
Thank you, Toby, for that introduction. It's a great pleasure to work with and to be friends with someone who has so much joie de vivre and passion for his work, his family, and his dad jokes. In case you aren't following Toby on Facebook, he's been sharing a dad joke a day throughout 2021. For example, learning how to be a trash collector isn't hard. I just picked it up as I went along. And he illustrates each joke with an appropriate meme or GIF. Things we do to get through a pandemic. And you, the MSc class of 2021, please give yourselves a round of applause wherever you are. You also found ways to get through the end of the dreaded year 2020, and most of the way through the slightly less dreaded but still pretty dread 2021. Congratulations for reaching this day of celebration after all the work, complaining, work, procrastinating, and then even more work that got you to this moment. We're celebrating with you in the same way we worked together this year, from a camera to a screen, beamed across the country and around the world. The other day, at the end of class, I came across 2 students still in their virtual Zoom breakout rooms after the rest of the group had packed it in. We started to chat about Confucian ethics and then other things until it occurred to me to ask them where they were. Penji said he was in China, and Yue Chao said so am I. Penji was in the city of Harbin, the farthest northern reaches of the country. Yue Chao was in Beijing, the capital. We talked about the weather, as you do, and Penji told me he'd gone to college at Penn State, and Yue Chao was a proud alumna of Wisconsin-Madison. After a pleasant conversation, it occurred to me that it was after 1:30 in the morning for these students, but they were awake, alert, and engaged. When I logged off, I stopped for a moment to bask in the wonder of this enormous, tiny world and the technology that has made the extraordinary year possible. Both of them would have been in Evanston in a normal year, but here we were talking the same way we used to during breaks in Searle. So we all found a way to connect this year. Those of you who traveled far from your desktops to class, and those whose laptops and cell phones were in Chicago, Evanston, and other places. Those of you in the CLP may have only heard of the HLP in rumors and legends, and vice versa for the HLP. But you shared a much more similar experience this year than in others. Some of you we've met in person, only at the very end of our journey. Some of you we have yet to meet, but we will. Hi, Annalise. You all shared something that I hope was often challenging, but always rewarding. And as I stare into the unblinking eye of the camera, I feel that I can look at you, not like in a creepy way, and say, you did it. But what did you do? If I were a mind reader, I could determine what each of you are thinking about your MSC experience right now. What was valuable, what was not. I know that each of you had your own struggles, your own successes, the moments that clicked and the moments of befuddlement, and even moments of frustration. Well, I'm not a mind reader, but I'm still going to try to make a guess about every one of the graduates of this class. I know that every single one of you is a person who takes language seriously. Each of you understands that speaking requires listening, that people can do more in teams than they can do by themselves, that change is inevitable and hard, that we are all connected in both physical and spiritual senses. You know that the way you say something matters, that elegance is more than aesthetic. You all care about the quality of the messages that you create, disseminate, and consume. You all understand that while the platform changes, the basic tenets of human communication endure. And we all agree that the diversity of the world is inevitably, if too slowly, being acknowledged as the connective fiber of our existence and not the wall that separates us. Natasha Stokes told me the other day that this is the first time she had ever gone to school voluntarily. I hope you're happy with your choice, Natasha. You chose to be one of us, and no matter how you feel about it right now, you, all of you, are part of the enduring legacy of Northwestern University, the MSc program, both the CLP and HLP, and the mighty class of 2021.
My name is E. Patrick Johnson, and I am the Dean of the School of Communication. Please accept my heartfelt, if virtual, congratulations on your extraordinary achievements. In a year unlike any other, you've managed setbacks, pivots, disruptions, and disappointments, but also breakthroughs, milestones, and an unrelenting pursuit of excellence in your work toward your Master of Science in Communication in one of the best and more storied programs of its kind in the country. You should be very proud. I certainly am. If you're anything like me, you'd rather look ahead at what is to come than back at what has transpired. But a year like this truly merits some reflection. Earning your master's as you waded through so much personal, political, and economic trauma might seem like bad luck, or at least bad timing. But I consider you to be fortunate. Not only did this year remind us of the value and resilience, but we saw how necessary your degree is to the health and functioning of our society. Each and every crisis we faced last year had massive communication implications and demonstrated how effective, truthful, and immediate messaging can and will keep our democracy afloat. Consider the contentious presidential election, out from which we are still digging our country. Massive coordinated disinformation campaigns, deep fakes, and bots spotlighted how the tools at our disposal can be abused. And they sharpened our will to tamp down on lies and half-truths spread by bad actors. Also, look at the widespread protests of the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and other Black Americans. The cohesive messaging and planning behind organized protests is the difference between chaos and affecting lasting change. Remember how creatively arts institutions pivoted when doors were shuttered, sets were struck, and theaters went dark. We watched how collaboration and performance produced online stretched our imaginations and reached new audiences. Or think about the strategies behind disseminating accurate health information that have resulted in half the country now being fully vaccinated, thus inching us ever closer to normal. Or the learning outcomes of the children working from a screen rather than face to face with their teacher. Or the import of digital mental health interventions when we were at our most vulnerable. Or how a good podcast kept us grounded in the wallowing moments. Or that every single institution, including our own, had to craft crisis communications to articulate the urgent ramifications of our rapidly changing circumstances. Last year was the pandemic year, yes, but it was also the moment your degree became something much more than a nice line on a resume, or your window to better opportunities, or a way to broaden your skill set. This year made you and the knowledge you accumulated at Northwestern essential. And this, combined with newfound hardiness and adaptability, will render you unstoppable. By virtue of being who you are and where you are in pursuit of your master's, I can attest to your brilliance, creativity, and drive. But we cannot discount how significant the when is. When you earned your MSc degree will have as much of an impact on your career as all the other variables. The when will forever set you apart. Because of the when, you are stronger, more certain of the value of your field, and more likely to persevere when faced with challenges. I look forward to seeing you use this when in whatever you set out to do. Congratulations, MSc graduates, on a remarkable accomplishment. Be well, best of luck, and go Cats!
I have a love-hate relationship with food. I mean, I love food, but I hate food. I love the smell of food. I love the taste of food. And I especially love the warm feeling I get knowing that my plate is making its way to the table. But I hate knowing that eating that double cheeseburger with bacon, those shoestring fries, and that luscious creamy milkshake, please don't forget my whipped cream, is a visit to the scale that won't bode well for my weight goals or my waistline. So instead, I choose a veggie burger wrapped in a giant leaf and carrot bacon. And I think to myself, God, where did I go wrong? And later, when I visit the scale, I walk away feeling accomplished, but I'm still thinking about that cheeseburger. That, that is love hate. I'm Joy Fleming, and I paid $60,000 to say I am a member of the 2021 MSc graduating class at Northwestern University. And I know I speak for all of us when I say love hate is the relationship we've had with Northwestern for this past year. While we loved the distraction that Northwestern has been during the most tumultuous times in our lives, we also hated the fact that the roller coaster ride of this pandemic didn't let up just because we decided to go to graduate school. In fact, it fueled the flames of isolation and the fear of missing out while we paused sleep to meet the dreaded deadline of the 11:59 p.m. timeline as life was being lived around us. And at times it stamped out the embers of motivation as we dreaded waking up on a Saturday morning debating whether or not we wanted to join a class in a black box or face full screen. And then there were those moments where we couldn't deny the love Northwestern gave for being the catalyst that forged the most unlikely of friendships in a Zoom window, or the moments we're taking right now to look back over all we've done in just 1 year and think I've done a thing and it was worth it. We hate what this pandemic took from us, the small everyday freedoms of moving about the world and doing what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it. And we can't help but also love what it still gifted us. The validation of finally bringing into focus the blurry perceptions of racism, inequality, social injustice, and the blatant disregard for Black lives as we witnessed the murder of George Floyd take center stage while the world watched. And some of us had no choice but to wake up and pay attention. Our fearless MSC leader, Amy Howenstein, once told me that there's a hidden curriculum in MSC where you gain a clarity about who you are and how you show up in this world. Our program curriculum was laser focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in it, I learned that it's not about just how we show up, but how we see each other and impact change in the world itself. We're living in a moment where hate seems to pervade every space, large and small. But I have a blessed assurance that love still prevails. It's our time to show up and use our God-given superpowers to see the unseen and make an impact in love. The woman I'm introducing you to today is a full-fledged superpower in her own right, working for the most iconic American company. Alicia J. Petros is Vice President and Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at the Hershey Company. That's right, the American chocolate you know and love so much. In her role, Alicia epitomizes the meaning of driving hate out with love. Alicia has been a member of Hershey's Human Resources Leadership Team since 2015, where she spearheads the development and execution of Hershey's enterprise diversity and inclusion strategies. Alicia partners both internally and externally to expand Hershey's partnership framework and to represent the company in key industry commitments. These include Paradigm for Parity, CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion, and the National Organization on Disability Look Closer campaign. Alicia has more than 15 years of progressive human resources experience, where before joining Hershey, she played a key role in advancing and executing inclusion and effective engagement at the Target Corporation. Her impactful work led to Target's ascension to the top 20 in the Diversity Inc. top 50 companies for diversity rankings. Prior to joining Target, Alicia was the first African American woman to hold the position of store team leader at the Dayton Hudson Corporation. I am honored and absolutely delighted to present one of the nicest people I know, Alicia A.J. Petros, as our graduating class's keynote speaker. Congratulations, everyone. The sacrifice you made to love on yourself was so worth it. And now, it's time to get out there and keep spreading the love.
Joy, thank you for the warm introduction. Hello, I am Alicia Petros, Chief Diversity Officer for the Hershey Company. I am honored to address you today. I would like to thank Amy Howenstein, PhD, Curriculum Director, and Randy Iden, PhD, Faculty Director, for the invitation to speak. Special thanks to Amy, as I hear you are the heart and soul of the CLP and HLP cohorts, directing everyone through all aspects of these programs. Next, thanks to Northwestern's administration and faculty, including Pat Messina, Anne Marie Adams, Toby Cortelu, Brian Libben, and the Capstone Creative Branding and Design coaches. Special thanks to Joy Fleming and the student committee coordinating this event. Thanks also to the parents and distinguished alumni. And finally, thanks to the class of 2021. You have persevered and triumphed through not one, but two unprecedented experiences in the last 18 months. I am humbled to address you, the Northwestern University Master of Communications graduates, particularly since, as of a few weeks ago, I could not figure out how to communicate with a restaurant's QR code. I visited my sister in Dallas, Texas, a few weeks ago. We had dinner reservations at a trendy new restaurant. We were seated, water was poured, and then the waiter left. We thought, wait a minute, when do we get menus? Well, I looked around and noticed a placard on the table with a QR code. Panic set in because I did not know how to use the QR code. Neither did my sister. The last time I used a QR code, it was with a QR reader. So I began looking through my apps, but there was no QR app reader in sight. Both of us furiously searched for a clue with no luck. Well, the waiter saw us struggling and silently walked over with 2 paper menus. So, crisis averted. And after dinner, I learned that now you can just scan the QR code with your camera. Well, we're all learning how to navigate updates to technology. I figured it out, and rest assured, I can share a thing or two about the power of communication to drive change. I believe the art of communication is the language of leadership. The skills and networks you have gained in the last 18 months are key to helping communities successfully emerge from the pandemic and heighten social issues. You are poised for personal and career success. And today, the world needs your artful communication. Each of you is poised to change the world. The events of the past year and a half have ratcheted up the need for communication, from early hints of a global pandemic in January of 2020, to separation orders in March, to witnessing the murder of George Floyd in May, then navigating America's summer of social unrest. Artful communication played a role in each of these unforeseen events. Nat Turner once said, "Good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity." Just pause and think about some of the most impactful communications you have received during your master's program. I will never forget the communication shared with Hershey employees about Hershey's care and concern for employees and communities on the eve of separation orders. You may have been on the receiving end of a similar communication, or perhaps it was a call or an email or text to loved ones sharing your plans for writing out separation. Each of you have gained priceless building blocks that will serve you well as you practice your craft. When I was 18, living in the city of Detroit, Michigan, and attending Cass Technical High School, I was the editor of the high school paper, the Cass Technician. That's when my love affair with communications began. I learned the art of journalistic writing, investigations, story construction, storytelling, as well as efficient newspaper operations. In my senior year, I entered a statewide competition to name the newly built site, which today is the GM World Headquarters. Hundreds of entries were submitted. At least 2 compelling entries submitted recommended the name of the Renaissance Center. A 28-year-old engineer working for GM and I landed on the same name. Our entries were postmarked within hours of each other. His arrived before mine. He won the naming right, and I was asked to officiate the opening of the towers, along with sharing my entry during the editorial segment of WJBK Evening News. So, here is my artful communications tip number 1. Communicate artfully and early. Communication is a critical skill for leadership. Communication is also a powerful tool to advance your work and your career. A decade after high school, I became the first Black store manager for the Dayton-Hudson Corporation. During interviews, I shared succinct stories of profitable innovations that I collaborated and delivered for another retailer during and after college. I am convinced that the ability to tell my story has opened doors to careers that I could never have envisioned. Communication is a critical skill for leadership and one that has vaulted my career. Years later, I became project manager of Target Corporation's New York 7 initiative, an incubator for Target's small format urban stores. While leading as an HR director for Target's largest volume producing group, the Metropolitan New York region, I worked collaboratively and with local, regional, and headquarters leaders to create a blueprint for enhanced store operations and profitability. I arrived at the New York assignment after leading HR for 9 states of Target stores in the Midwest. After touring stores and working with teams, I was convinced that the New York stores could generate more sales volume and could run more efficiently. I invested time talking with employees, customers, vendors, and business leaders. And when my new boss arrived 6 months later, I took them on a tour of the market from the perspective of employees working in the stores. Along the way, I pointed out how different New York operations and consumers were compared to Target operations in the Midwest. I shared stories from employees about hiring and staffing opportunities, stories about the employee experience, and stories from store leaders and consumers about chronic out-of-stocks on key consumer items. At the end of the tour, my new boss asked me to tell that same story to the region and to headquarters. And 2 months later, I told the same story to pyramid leaders at Target headquarters, resulting in the sign-off of the New York 7 initiative. Today, many of you have likely shopped at an urban format store courtesy of storytelling. The power of storytelling is a must-have in today's chaotic world. A beautifully constructed story has the power to engage, captivate, and drive action. In my current role, I have the privilege of sharing Hershey's diversity, equity, and inclusion story. From speaking at the Obama administration's first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Summit at the White House, to ringing the opening bell on Wall Street, to reading bedtime stories to the girls of Liberty House on the campus of the Milton Hershey School, to participating in a recent Bloomberg Sustainable Business Summit, a large part of my inclusive leadership style is grounded in how I communicate, the networks that I build, and the stories that I tell. In fact, inclusive leadership is grounded in communication. First, know your own story, and then embrace and exalt a variety of worldviews as you communicate. Many of today's must-read stories center on the advancement of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hershey has been at the work of advancing equity for over 125 years. We have accomplished a lot. We know we have more work to do. Hershey has a proud legacy of goodness. We believe our corporate legacy and leadership go together. As such, we continuously reflect on our legacy of goodness to support our leadership and inform future action. Hershey is committed to serving the communities of all stakeholders, from employees to the local Hershey community to the globe. As part of this commitment, we are making an impact through educational investments, community programming, and the infusion of DEI initiatives across supply chain partners. We believe every child deserves a chance at a bright future and have been dedicated to fulfilling this belief for more than 100 years. It started in 1909 when our founder established the Milton Hershey School for Kids. Today, this world-class boarding school serves more than 2,000 kindergarten through high school age students. Upon graduation, college-bound alumni receive scholarships of more than $80,000 to complete their college education. And sales of Hershey brands continue to fund this premier educational institution. At Hershey, we look at DEI as a priority. It's part of what makes us a great leader in the industry, a great place to work, and a company people want to do business with. To be successful and continue to make progress, we know our actions must be intentional. Our leadership must continue to embrace the mindset of leading with bold transparency. And Hershey has been a boldly transparent industry leader for decades. Hershey had a female board member in 1970. Today, our legacy commitment to equity and inclusion is seen throughout our leadership, with a board of directors that has 58% diverse representation, inclusive of 5 women, an executive committee led by Michele Buck, CEO and chairwoman, with 44% diverse representation, and a global workforce with nearly 50% gender representation. By 2025, we seek to increase representation of our employee base such that 47 to 50% of employees are women, 30 to 40% are people of color, and 30% of people leader roles are occupied by people of color, with 40 to 42% of people leader roles being led by women. Lastly, here is an equity stat that I am thrilled to share. Hershey has achieved aggregate pay equity. Yes, that's right. U.S. salaried women and people of color earn $1 for $1 compared to white males. And we're not done. We plan to achieve 1-to-1 aggregate pay equity for salaried employees worldwide by 2025. I have negotiated the political and social turmoil of the last few years while still focusing on the progress and success of Hershey by leveraging communication skills and networks. People must feel DEI in our culture to make it real. And right now, it's all about the network. It's no longer about what I think we should do. It's what we should do. At Hershey, change starts by listening with empathy to the hearts and minds of employees. In doing so, we can put our foot where our mouth is to show notable, measurable progress, founded upon internal and external perspectives. I found that co-creation is key to accelerating change. After the murder of George Floyd, we took time to listen to employees, to understand what they were feeling, and to involve dozens of employees in the co-creation of 5 Hershey commitments. Upholding our legacy value of inclusion, providing resources and tools for employees navigating the impact of systemic racism, supporting our Black and brown colleagues and their careers, providing unconscious bias resources for all employees twice a year, and providing resources to longstanding and new partners in the fight for equity. We didn't stop there. We seized the moment to accelerate diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts already underway. We involved hundreds of employees across the globe in listening sessions post-George Floyd amidst the pandemic. Leveraging internal and external networks, we were able to gain valuable, real, and sometimes hard to hear insights about what was going well as what needed to be done differently. This co-creation of our new story was critical. I could not have done this work without our employees, and our employees would not have bought into our new strategies without helping to design them. Conversations continued among our internal employee affinity groups or business resource groups, which grew in participants by 37% in 2020. The Black BRG produced a series of 1-minute videos to share the struggles of the Black experience in America. In months of doing this work, we realized that our prior focus was on diversity at an executive level. Our listening sessions prompted Hershey to shift the lens to middle and entry levels to ensure diversity across all levels of the organization. Listening sessions led to the launch of a data project assessing race, promotion rates, and retention rates. Data showed that Hershey's U.S. consumer base is 28% Black and Latinx, but the employee base was only 15% Black and Latinx. This storyline was key in highlighting representation gaps as a business opportunity. Working with employees, business leaders, and external thought partners, we co-created a new enterprise diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. The Pathways Project was an output of our listening sessions. This project is a critical vehicle to achieve our ambitious goals, focused on 3 pillars. More pathways to join, bringing in a wider range of talent and perspectives. More pathways to grow, recognizing and developing talent we haven't in the past. And more pathways to reach out, showing up for consumers and communities in new ways. We want to be a top DEI company. Excellence is one of our 4 values, and we need DEI to be an excellent part of our culture by 2025. This aim is a business imperative and a mandate from our CEO, Michele Buck. Stories must be repeated. We believe companies have a responsibility to live and visibly demonstrate their values. We remind employees and leaders of our aims and of our commitments to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion at all town halls and leader forums. And I have to tell you, there is so much energy and excitement around our DEI initiatives. As graduates of Northwestern's Master of Communications programs, you are in possession of expert communication skills. Whether you are seeking a new role or whether you want to take your current leadership to a higher level, you are among the best equipped to make change. I know this to be true. Communication can be the equalizer and connector in the fight for equity. Listening with empathy, speaking passionately, writing clearly. These are necessary skills to engage hearts and minds. I would like to end with an inspirational call to action. As graduates of the prestigious Northwestern Master of Communications programs, you are armed with the knowledge, skills, and strengths to lead. Use your new powers with intention. Communicate the changes you want to see in the world. Cultivate your networks and your audience will grow. Here are 4 tips. 1. Know your own story. 2. Communicate artfully, intentionally, early, and often. 3. Cultivate your networks to inform your worldview and expand your reach. Lastly, believe in yourself and in your unique ability to lead. 2021 Northwestern University Masters of Communications graduates, it has been my pleasure to address you. Thank you for your time. Go forth, communicate artfully, and lead.
Seth Allen Carlson. Michele Marie Carmichael. Michele Clare Chalupka. Hao Chi. Andrea Lynn Darwin. Joy Renee Fleming. Jenna Kaczewski. Krishna Aya. Judith Marie Jean-Michel. Richard Ray Jones. Lisa Carolina Martinez. Alexandra A. Miller. Simon Angus Negri. Jennifer Aaron Paul. Ahmed Shalim. Taryn Chauncey Smith O'Neill. Collette Kirsten Walton. Mawas Sahara Alam. Aisha Ali. Gabrielle Sara Banaszek. Kassandra Banko. Stacy Celia Bohrer. Saiba Karkailert Borisov. Brent Allen Brewer. Jeffrey Allen Brown. Kirsten Elaine Byers. Mackenzie Lauren Carter. Janina Altagracia Castillo Rojas. Benyu Chen. Jia Chen. Nianzi Chen. Richard John Thomas Coors. Stephen Christopher Dale. Teresa Marlene Davenport. Mary Alexandra Ducksworth. Lucy Patricia Emery. Natalie Jane Espinoza. Shu Faun. Andrew Michael Fish. Zihan Gao. Elizabeth Mary Gasparka. Dion Getzi. William Goof. Julia Elise Heller. Annalise Marie Helwig Schuster, Judith Hernandez, Luz Enid Hernandez Weatherly, Dakota Dandon King, Karina Barbara Kasmala, Marita Catherine Labez Paul, Katherine Logan, Siang Liang, Grace Marie Reynolds Loopy, Shama, Kyla Jacqueline Marshall, Pamzil Pride Masabuco, Themis James Morikis, Onyx Nava, Winifred Asrumen Obanor, Julia Peasley, Natasha Liz Porter, Sharika Denise Pringle, Lingjia Chi, Amy Adair Shanks, Anna Helen Stazek, Natasha Ann Stokes, John Rudolph Tanasevich, Mingkong Tang, David Spencer Venkus, Anthony T. Walker, Emma Catherine Walsh, Yufen Wang, Penje Wei, Catherine May Wheelahan, Jaron T. Williams, Bowen Yan, Hun Yang, Daniel Ray Young, Bishuan Katrina Yu, Musang, Ning Zhang, Chi Zhang, Yuichao Zhang, Zohan Zhang, Caitlin Amanda Zilke.
Well, you did it. You are now officially alumni of Northwestern University. Congratulations. You know, if you talk to any alumni of the MSc program and ask them about some of the takeaways from their experience, you'll get some version or iteration of two things. It's the knowledge and the network. These are the two big takeaways from the MSc program. As far as the knowledge is concerned, I spoke about it earlier: collaborative leadership, elegant communication, managing complexity. These skills that you're going to continue to develop will grow exponentially as you move throughout your career and life. As for the network, the struggles, the trials, the tribulations, and the great successes that you've experienced together as a cohort have built bonds and friendships that are going to last a lifetime. And it's in the spirit of these friendships that the MSc program asks of you three things upon graduation. First, continue to support each other. Continue to advise each other, invest in each other, hire each other. Again, these friendships are going to last a very, very long time. The support that you have experienced in the MSc program from your classmates will continue. Make a deliberate effort to stay in touch. Also, number two, please continue to support the MSc program. Refer people you know to the MSc program to become students. Continue to increase the value of your own degree through this method. Also, join and participate in the MSc Alumni Association activities and events. It's a vibrant alumni community, and we look forward to your partnership. And third and finally, be bold and succeed with integrity. Famed Chicago architect Daniel Burnham said, "Make no small plans." This applies to you. With the support of your classmates, the MSc alumni community, faculty, staff, and more than 220,000 Northwestern alumni spread all over the world, you have nothing to fear. You can accomplish anything. So whatever you're thinking of doing next, jump in with both feet. You can do it. We believe in you and we love you. We have your back. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this year's convocation ceremony, and congratulations once again to the MSc class of 2021.